Hello, Joyce.
Hello, you're
Please,
back. Good evening.
Yes, I relocated because the place was a bit, people came to the office and yeah, there was some noise, so I have to relocate. So
thank you for that sacrifice. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
make me a co-host now.
Sure,
And,
let me do so.
Sure.
Okay, good. Guests, welcome everybody to Journal Club, a space where we learn and grow together. We have been really honored today to have one of us who's our member. And I'll give you a brief profile of Mr. Isaac Nketsiah. Meanwhile, I'd like you to also introduce yourselves in the chat. Please tell us your name, institution, research interests. Really is it, we are going to have an in-depth look and a practical application as to overcoming plagiarism in contemporary research. So Mr. Isaac Nketsiah is the coordinator of industry and officer . Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Let me get a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right, I see that you can hear me. All right. So he also holds a certificate in result-based project management, monitoring and evaluation from in Bangalore. He is currently a PhD candidate of entrepreneurship and innovation at the College of Law and Management Studies in the University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. His research interests administration. Now I could go on and read his profile of the experience where he has had over 10 years administrative research and project management experience with a number of companies, but I will leave that to you if you want to know more about what Mr. Nketsiah does. In addition to his extensive experience, he also has 13 publications in the form of 5 journal articles and 8 technical reports to his credit. Nationally, Mr. Nketsiah serves on the multi-stakeholder team drafting the Data Quality Assurance Framework for Ghana. That's the DQAF. So I'm sure our facilitator will also share his contacts at the end in case you are interested. And of course, nowadays, scholars are on Google Scholar, they're on all this indexing. You can always take a spotlight at what Mr. Nketsiah has managed to do so far. We are so honored to have him here. And now I would like to invite him, welcome, sir, to give us your presentation, after which we will have question and answers.
Thanks so much, Joyce, for the honors to share the little I know. Yes. So my topic is overcoming plagiarism in contemporary research. Before I start my presentation, I would like to tell you something about where I'm coming from. So I'm coming from the University of Cape Coast, and there's an interesting thing that has happened this year that we want to talk about. We want the world to know. For the past 60 years, UCC had never been involved in any ranking institution. However, just this year, in June of this year, we submitted our data for the Times Higher Education ranking. And in September 1st, the ranking result came out. And that's what I want to share, how our university performed with you. So interestingly, as a debutant, you were first in Ghana. You were also #1 in West Africa. And in Africa, you were among the top 5. So you were in the 4th position in Africa. And in terms of research influence, which is being measured by weighted average citation of faculty, UCC was #1 globally. So we are very proud to say that we were even able, with this matrix, we were even able to overcome the University of Oxford, and we had a perfect score of 100% for research influence. And I'm very happy to announce that I was part of the committee that worked on this ranking issue. So this is where I am coming from. And we know we cannot achieve these feats if we are not making an attempt to overcome plagiarism. Yes, no one can submit substandard papers for that person to be ranked. So when we are ranked, it means we are there. I don't want to bore you much with the another one that came up with the Miagen economics. I want to go on straight to how my presentation will be like. 1, I'll be talking about why this webinar. 2, what is plagiarism and how do we understand plagiarism? We will do some plagiarism tests to see our understanding of it. We will also attempt to see the types and examples of plagiarism, the tips to overcoming this research monster, so to speak. I will also walk you through UCC's penalties, my University of Cape Coast, the penalties that are there for people who are caught in this web of plagiarism. After that, as Joyce indicated, we allow room for questions and answers. So if you have questions and answers, you try and write it down. When we are done, the next 30 minutes, we will give you the permission to also ask all your questions. Again, it is going to be an interactive section. So we'll give you the opportunity to also engage you on the chat box. In the chat box to also explain some of the things that we will be discussing. So the first thing that I want to ask is, there are 5 questions that I'm going to show. In your view, we want to use it to check our understanding of what plagiarism really is. So we want to decide whether the statements are true or false, or whether they require citation or they do not require citation. So the first one is, if I write a paper for one course, is it okay to submit the same paper for a different course as long as it is my own writing? So let's engage in the chat box. Is it true or false? Let's engage in the chat box. So you can write 1 If it is true, write true. If it is false, you write false. Please, let's engage.
Yeah, I see the chats are already there. Some people are still introducing themselves, but for this question, Fatma Amio says false. Isaac Kojo Ewusi says false. Dorothy Obengo says 2. I think you mean false, right? So question number 1, you say true or false, okay? Kathy says false. Bonareri 2, which I think means false. Doreen answer false. Mwaora false. Benjamin Akinmoyeje 2. If I butchered your name, I'm sorry. Chris Wasike says false. So I think we are all saying false. Mary Coco says false. We still have more chats coming in.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. The next question, question 2 also says, if you are sure that a fact is common knowledge, it's not necessary to cite it. True or false, in your view?
Rhoda Masungu false. The chats are coming fast and furious. You need to say what number you're answering. Dorothy Obengo false. Emmanuel true. Mwaura false. Bonareri number 2. What's the answer? Bonareri false. Isaac Kojo Ewusi question 2 false. Chris false. Benjamin 1, which I think means true. Maina false. Enoch false. Eric Okod false.
That's fine. The next 1, 2 says you can never cite a source if it appears on the World Wide Web. It's only okay to cite sources from printed books and journals. So we are, as I indicated earlier, we are testing our understanding of what plagiarism is. And we know plagiarism falls into the domain of research ethics and misconduct. So we are just testing our understanding of what it is. So when we are done.
Question 3, Fatma is saying false, Rhoda false, Benjamin 2, which I think means false, Dorothy false, Enoch false, Zadok neutral. Wow, was neutral one of the choices, Zadok? Chris false, Tracy false, Bonareri 2, which I think means false, Kathy false, Ahmed Abi false, Doreen false, Maina false, Emmanuel false. There's a lot of false. Esther, Isaac false, Eric false.
That's fine. So we appreciate all your comments. We'll talk about it as the presentation goes on. The 4th one is, if you paraphrase the text from a source, you must cite the source in your paper. If you paraphrase the text from a source, you must cite the source in your paper. True or false?
Zadok true, Fatma true, Enoch true, Rhoda true, Chris true, Tracy true, Maina true, Bonareri 1, which I think means true, Ike true, Emmanuel true, Doreen true, Kathy, Mary, Emmanuel are all saying true, 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 Eric true. There are 2 Emmanuels, both are saying true, Zuta true, Isaac false, Dorothy Obengo true. So I think in almost all the questions we have a mixed bag, but we have a majority, saying the same answer. So we'll get to know the correct answer. Nawirieve@gmail.com says true. Eric Okot true.
That's beautiful. So the last one, it's okay to pay another student or company to write your paper, as long as you pay a fair amount.
Number 5, Zadok Mange false, Rhoda false, Tracy false, Emmanuel false, Dorothy false, Doreen false, Bonareri 2, I think means false, Emmanuel false, Benjamin false, Maina true and false. Now that's a philosopher. Isaac false, nawirieve@gmail.com false, Ahmed false, Esther false, Kathy false. This one is 50-50. Have the truth and the false. Ike false.
That's beautiful. So we appreciate your responses. Yes. So as it's just a preliminary what the questions to just test understanding of. Yeah, but the answers coming in have given me appreciate the audience understanding of what plagiarism is. So now let's go straight. So the objective for this webinar is twofold. One, to learn how to detect plagiarism. Two, how to prevent it in our own writing. And what is the outcome? The outcome is that we'll be able to say no to plagiarism. So we'll be more confident in using academic sources effectively. So you can be like this man who is able to jump from one end of this to the other. So at the end of the webinar, we want to, if you are be able to achieve this outcome of being able to feel confident in citing sources effectively. So what is plagiarism? Let's engage in the chat box. What is plagiarism? Please, let's engage in the chat box.
I think our participants are still thinking about the answer. Some people are probably Googling, because I know we are now in that age with this generation. Benjamin Akinmoye says, using other people's work without acknowledging them. Emmanuel Akoto, academic and intellectual theft. Maina says, stealing people's work and pretending they are yours. Tracy says, taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as your own. Isaac Ewusi says, the act of using a research piece of a person without citing them. Dorothy Obengo, presenting work that is not yours as yours without giving credit. And Effa says false. I think that was number 5. Mary Coco, copying other people's work and passing it as your own.
These are all beautiful responses. So the Yale, let's see how the Yale Student Handbook also defines it. It says, it's the use of another's work, words, or ideas without proper attribution. Without proper attribution, and it can be accidental or it can be planned. So from the responses that came, we see that these are captured in there. And it comes from a Latin word. The word plagiarism comes from a Latin word which means kidnapper. And we understand that from criminal law, when someone kidnaps, it's a criminal offense. So in academia, it's also punishable offense to plagiarize. That's what it means. Why do you think some people plagiarize? Let's engage in the chat box. Why do you think people plagiarize? Please, let's engage.
Yeah, the questions are really wonderful. Why do students plagiarize?
Plagiarize. Sure, let's engage.
Mary Coco says to pass examinations, Fatma, when one is unable to synthesize information. Ahmed says for achieving their goal in short. Dorothy says they think they do not have time. They believe they cannot do it by themselves. Isaac says difficulty in coming up with original content. Tracy says they fear failing. Abby says shortness of time to do due diligence, you know. Ike says lack of knowledge, you know. Benjamin says they don't know, they are lazy. Doreen says he has no idea on the question asked. So if somebody has no idea, you know. Mina says lack of confidence in themselves, quick ways of making it in academic writing, lack of mental strength to think, concrete. Emmanuel says it's a selfish interest for one to be seen as the originator of an idea or work. Yeah, keep the comments coming.
So All these comments are very beautiful comments. So we also did a study to find out student perception about why plagiarism. And these are some of the issues that came out. Some say that it's easy for me to copy or paste due to contemporary technology. The technology has made it easy for parents to copy and paste. Some says, I do not know how to cite electronic information. And our response was, it is hard for me to keep track of information sources on the web. Some says it's because of time factor. Some says, I do not know how to find research materials. So later on, when the opportunity presents itself, I will introduce us to a POP, Parish of Parish software that can help us to do literature search later on. Some says my reading comprehension skills are weak. That's why I plagiarize. Others too says they have writing difficulties. The reason being that in academia, writing is the most difficult thing. And in academic writing, that is different from the way we write others. I remember in the SSS days, when we were in the secondary school, sometimes when you want to write letter, you can write, the brightness of the day has given me the opportunity to say and so, okay, without making any attribution, citing any source at all, you just write. But in academia, it's not like that. So others says that because of that, that's why they plagiarize. Now let's see the types of plagiarism. The first one that comes to mind is the one that we all know, the direct one, copying word for word without acknowledging the source. So for example, we see this work done by Johnson et al., who says that came out with a finding that optimizing peak bone mass during the early years is thought to be a key factor in preventing osteoporosis later in life. We want to use the work, and we write this. Did you know a key factor in preventing osteoporosis later in life is by optimizing peak bone mass during the early years? Do you agree it is a plagiarized version or not? Let's engage in the chat box. That's what the students wrote. Do you think it's plagiarized version?
Zadok Mange says it is not only students who plagiarize, even some researchers. Oh, I think that's the earlier question. Emmanuel says no. It's not plagiarized. Isaac says not plagiarized. Esther, no. Emmanuel Akoto, no. Dorothy says yes. It is plagiarized.
That's beautiful.
Effa says no. All right.
So I appreciate the responses. So I'm saying, let's see this. So a key factor in prevention of osteoporosis later in life, the ones highlighted in red ink are the exact words of Johnson et al. So even though the excuse that we make is that he has referenced it, it's been cited, but how do you see it? Even though there was a citation, we can say that because it was the exact words of the original author, those words should have been in what? In quotation marks. And that's academic writing. So you can only say that you have gone off from plagiarism when you use the exact words of an author. You should indicate that those are the exact words of the author. You can't just write the exact words of the author and just cite. No. So the exact words should be in quotation marks. And that is the unplagiarized version. The best option could have been, if you don't want to put it in quotation marks, you can do a paraphrase, like, to prevent osteoporosis, experts believe it is important to build bone mass before adulthood. That is the idea behind what Johnson et al. is saying. Are we together? All right. The next type is what we call the patch writing. Patch writing. And it's a form of plagiarism. How does that also look like? What the plagiarizer does is that the plagiarizer borrows phrases and clauses from the original source and weaves them into his own writing. So for example, if you're using the same example of the optimizing peak bone mass during the early years, so the pen can write it like this. Did you know? Then he writes the same thing as he saw from the particular paper. Okay, so without using quotation marks and proper citation, the author has committed what we call patch or mosaic plagiarism. The third one is what we call the paraphrasing plagiarism. So for this, the author uses the idea of the particular author. So even though the person has crafted the work in his own words, but he keeps what? The author's essential thoughts. So it's not using the exact words. It can use synonyms or whatever, but the essential thoughts of the original author can be seen in the sentence. And the person thinks that because he has used or he has changed the words or rewritten the words, he shouldn't cite. And that is paraphrasing plagiarism. For example, Nketsiah 2020 came out with this finding when it was looking at the type of products that is often purchased by consumers, and came out with a finding that earth-friendly products are being purchased more often by consumers. A student sees this and wants to use it in his work. And the student writes this. Increasingly, shoppers are choosing to buy environmentally safe products. So this is a plagiarized version because there was no words. It didn't attribute this to Nketsiah. This one didn't come from the sky. It really came from somebody. He read it somewhere. That's Nketsiah's work came out with this finding. How did the person do? He used the idea from Nketsiah without properly attributing this to Nketsiah. And that's a form of academic dishonesty. So the acceptable ones can be, maybe Nketsiah argues that increasingly shoppers are choosing to buy environmentally safe products. Or in the view of Nketsiah, 2020, shoppers are choosing to buy, and that's academic writing. Another example of paraphrasing plagiarism that you want to use is this. Muller and Hancock came out with this finding that instead of analyzing data with exploratory factor analysis and potentially facing a solution inconsistent with the initial theory, a confirmatory factor analysis can give the investigator valuable information regarding the fit of the data to the specific theory-derived measurement model. That points to the potential weakness of specific items. So probably we read this and want to also use it in our work because we're doing maybe factor analysis and came across this and want to use it. So we can paraphrase it in this way. If the focus of the investigation is the connection between data and theoretical model being used for measurement, a confirmatory factor analysis is a better choice than exploratory factor analysis, as a confirmatory factor analysis is more likely to provide results that show the connection between data and theory. So the whole thing that we read from the Muller and Hancock, that is the idea that CFA is better choice than EFA, especially when we want to show connection between data and theory. when you write that, though we didn't use the exact words of Muller and Cook, we have to still attribute it to them. It's their work. Now let's test our understanding up to this point. There are three things that I'm putting there. Making use of the works of others to support our own arguments. When someone does this, is it ethical or unethical? Is it plagiarism? Making use of the works of others to support our own arguments. Let's engage in the chat box.
Emmanuel says it's not. Chris, no. Tracy, it's ethical. Helen, yes, it is. Isaac, it depends. Enoch says it's ethical. Nicholas, no.
The next one. So this one is, okay, so I will explain. Using the work of another and misrepresent it as your own. Is it ethical or non-ethical? Is that form through plagiarism?
So please say which question you're answering. Ahmed says no. Nancy, no. Suleiman, yes, if you do not cite. Emmanuel, once it's cited, it's okay. Emmanuel, yes. Rhoda, it's unethical. Tracy, not ethical. Isaac, question 2, unethical. Mary Coco, yes. Enoch, unethical. Nicholas B, yes. Chris, yes. Emmanuel Arhin, unethical. Nancy, yes. Dorothy, yes, ethical. If we acknowledge. Effa, yes. Hasina, it's unethical. Emmanuel Akoto, no.
That's beautiful. The next one is examining the ideas and arguments of others to help you shape your own thoughts or views on a particular phenomenon.
We have Zadok Mainge, yes, it is acceptable. Mary Coco, no. Chris, no. So far we have a divided vote. Emmanuel says, sure. Another Emmanuel, acceptable. Dorothy says it's ethical, but must be acknowledged. Eric Ocord says it's acceptable. Kathy, accepted. Nicholas Outa, no, unless it's not properly cited. Isaac Ewusi, it's not, question 3. Ahmed, no, but using citation. And Nancy, not acceptable.
Good. So the first, the A and the C are not, because that's the reason why we do literature review. So you will certainly fall on others' people's words to create a gap in our research in order to expand argument for the reason for which we are undertaking that particular research. However, for the B is problematic. The reason being that, look at it, says what? Misrepresent. That's the key word. So it can be a paraphrasing plagiarism. It can be that you paraphrased, but you didn't cite, meaning you portray it as if it's coming from your own thoughts. Meanwhile, it's someone's idea. So the bottom line is that if you didn't write it, it doesn't belong to you. If you didn't write it, it doesn't belong to you. Let's see this scenario. You have a brilliant brainwave for a critical interpretation of an article that you are writing. But when you were also writing and not reading another source, you saw that the same idea too is mentioned in that paper. You already had that idea. So do you need to reference it? Yes, you need to. Yes, you need to. As far as that is a published article, you need to acknowledge that source. Yours is in the process. Yours is work in progress. So if yours is work in progress and someone's one is already published, even though you had the idea, that's why in academia, when the idea comes, you have to work on it fast. So in the journal club that I belong to, mostly tell us that we should shut up and write. Because if you don't shut up and write, and someone writes it, then the person takes authority over you. So what that means is that you have great mind. So you also think like the author. However, if the person has already published it and you already had that idea too, you have to cite the source. Doesn't mean that everything that you have to cite. No. You have something we call common knowledge. For common knowledge, we don't need to cite. And the UTC library guide defines common knowledge as stable, well-documented, non-controversial, and straightforward facts about the world. So they are stable, they are well-documented, and they are non-controversial. The MIT Student Handbook also defines common knowledge that information that an average education reader will accept as reliable without having to do any reference or look it up. So when the average educated reader sees that this statement is reliable, and that's what the MIT handbook is saying. However, data set generated by you or others is not common knowledge. Statistics obtained from sources like Statistical Service, the GLSS, World Bank data, they are not. We need to cite. References to studies done by others. Reference to specific dates and numbers. Fact that the reader will not know unless they check it up needs to be cited. So from this background, let's see if we can test our understanding of what common knowledge is. So I'm putting out about 5 questions there. Sorry, about 6 questions. 1, Barack Obama was the first African American to be elected president of USA. Do you need to cite this if someone's write this in his work and want to use it? You have to cite this. Barack Obama was the first African American to be elected president of USA. If you want to use this statement in your work, you have to cite it.
Arhin, no. Tracy, no. Mary, no. Kathy, Enoch, Dorothy are saying no. Isaac, no. Dr. Lovedays, no. Looks like it's a no so far. Oyaro, no. Yeah. So far we
in
have
the field of nursing, female students usually outnumber their male counterparts. In the field of nursing, female students usually outnumber their male counterparts.
Tracy, yes. You need to cite that. Nicholas, yes. Enoch, yes. Fatma, Dorothy, yes. Yes, yes. James, Isaac, Mary out saying yes. Oyaro, Hasina, Isaac, Nancy, Benjamin says you have to cite that. Zuta, Maggie says yes.
The population of Nigeria is 120 million.
Okay. Emmanuel says no. It seems it's common knowledge to him. The rest are saying yes, yes, yes. Jed Asare says no. A few no's, majority yeses. Isaac, Enoch, Oyara, Efa,
the largest country in the world is Russia.
So number 4, let's see the answers. Emmanuel, no. James, no. Benjamin, no. Rhoda, Isaac, Hasina, Kazi, they're all saying no. Dorothy, Tracy, Fatma, Evelyn, Maggie, Nicholas, no.
Okay.
You don't need to.
So that is it. So the first one, okay, let's move on. Female students generally have fear for mathematical related courses. Female students generally have fear for mathematical related courses.
Hasina, yes. Tracy, yes. You need to cite that. Enoch, Benjamin, Oyaro, Fatma, yes. Dr. Loveday, yes. James, yes. Dorothy says, we refuse that. She doesn't agree to the statement, with the statement. Isaac says, yes, it is to be cited. Jed says no. Emmanuel, no.
6. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Emmanuel, no. Helen, yes. Dr. Loveday, no. We don't cite that. Kathy, no. Emmanuel, Fatma, no. Jed says, yes, you need to cite that. Nicholas Ota, yes. Esther, yes. Brenda, Isaac, Hasina say no. Evelyn says no. That's a mixed vote. Emmanuel sent an emoji. It's funny.
Yeah, so
Ahmed, no.
there's a bottom line to all this.
Okay.
So the bottom line is that if you can find it, according to the UTC library guide, says that if you can find it in the high school textbook, then it's a common knowledge. If you can find it in the high school textbook, if you can find that particular knowledge or that statement in high school textbook, then it's probably a common knowledge. Barack Obama was the first African American to be elected president. We all know that it's a common knowledge. In the field of nursing, female students usually outnumber their male counterparts. It's not common knowledge. Someone may have come out with finding to refuse this or not. The population of Nigeria is 120 million. This is from a data, this exact figure. So you should see the source. The largest country in the world is Russia. That is common knowledge, unless we don't know. Female students generally have fear for mathematical related courses. It's not common knowledge. Someone may have come out with this finding about attitudes of female students towards mathematics. Water freezes at 0 degrees, that one is common knowledge. However, the best advice is that if you're in doubt, for example, some are discipline specific. For example, water freezes at, some of us are business students or in the humanities. Those in the sciences may have a better understanding of question 6, so they may know that it's a common knowledge. But what is common knowledge in one discipline may not be necessarily common knowledge in another discipline. Therefore, it says when you are in doubt, you have to cite your source. However, in academic writing, if every statement you make you cite, it weakens your academic writing. That's the danger of it. So you should have an authority over what you are writing. You should know which ones are common knowledge in your discipline and which are not in your discipline. So whenever you write something, you communicate in 3 ways. If someone picks your work and he sees a citation and a quotation mark, what you are telling the reader is that that passage is someone else's information in that particular person's exact words. When you see citation, but you don't write quotation marks, it means the passage is someone else's information, but you paraphrased it. You wrote it in your own words. Whenever you see no citation, no quotation marks, that means that you have introduced something new into the body of knowledge. So that passage is your own idea in your own words. You didn't pick it from anywhere. Probably it's a commentary on someone's work. How do we then avoid plagiarism? The bottom line is that you have to be honest. If you're honest, you know that other people are toiled to come out with findings that they are making use of to create gap for our own research work. So we should acknowledge them. We should avoid procrastination. Else, if time factor catches us, we may be tempted to be dishonest. Whatever material we want to use, we should completely understand the original material. If you don't understand the original material, the probability that you copy is very, very. The third one, we should understand the difference between quoting, summarizing, and paraphrasing. So those who are into qualitative research mostly can quote exact words of the respondents that they interview. Summarizing means that you are writing what others have done. You are reducing the volume of what others have written. Paraphrasing, writing it in your own words. It can be more or it can be less. The rule of thumb is that to avoid plagiarism, we should never copy more than 3 or 4 words in a row from a single source without using quotation marks. If we do, we'll be caught in the web of plagiarism. We should also avoid using special words or phrases without properly attribution. We should also draw from many sources. You shouldn't think that probably when they tell us that we should investigate maybe attitude of female students towards mathematics in maybe Kaduna State, and we chance on another paper that is attitude of female students in maybe University of Makerere, said, oh, voila. So now we can just use it like that. No. We should read more sources and try to write all those ones in our own words. So we explain what the author meant in the context of our own paper. Then we compare and contrast the view of the author. We add our own comments, we critique and write our own observations. If we do this, we'll be able to overcome plagiarism. It comes with a skill. That's why some of these webinars are helping us to develop that skill of academic writing. Let me take you through what pertains in my university, that's University of Cape Coast in Ghana. So in the University of Cape Coast in Ghana, for thesis, this is what applies. If you write your thesis and we run it through the Turnitin in plagiarism software, and you get less than 19%, you can graduate in peace. If it is more than, you have to remove some plagiarized versions. However, when it goes beyond 69%, you'll be dismissed and you'll be barred from pursuing any program in the University of Cape Coast for the next 5 years. That means that it is a serious offense. Plagiarism is a serious academic offense. What if the person was not caught, but the person had a certificate? Later on, when it became apparent that the student had a plagiarized part of his work more than 20%, but had a certificate, the degree can be revoked. Now, let me walk you through the possible answers to the questions that we use for the introduction. If I write a paper for one course, it's okay to submit the same paper for a different course as long as it is my own writing as false. That is self-plagiarism. As far as you publish it, though it's yours, even if you want to use it, you have to acknowledge it. If you are sure that a fact is common knowledge, it is not necessary to cite it. It's true. If you are very sure it is, that's why I said it is discipline specific. So in your discipline, you should read widely enough to see which are common knowledge and which are not. But if you're in doubt, you cite. However, overcitation also weakens academic writing. You can never cite a source if it appears on World Wide Web. It's false. If you paraphrase a text from a source, you must cite the source in your paper. It's true. It's okay to pay another person to write your paper as long as you pay a fair amount. It's false. It amounts to academic dishonesty. We don't share certificates. It's yours and it's earned. So you have to earn your certificate. Someone should not do that for you. In academia, it's dishonesty. So up to now, we can keep calm and say no to plagiarism if and only if we are honest. If we are honest, we can say no to plagiarism. We will not do like this, act like this people are acting. As if we're just saying thank you, but we're also picking something under. We want to be very honest in all our dealings. To wrap it up, I take this anonymous quote. He says that a lie may take care of the present, but it has no future. So you can plagiarize someone's work and get your certificate, but you'll not go scot-free. If you Google about plagiarism scandals on the internet, you see that some people, sometimes if people want to put themselves for some positions, leadership positions, they ask other people to give them information that they know. And sometimes someone can even go and fish your school days, what you did. Let us all be very honest in academic writing, and you'll be safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What an insightful presentation. There have been comments. There's still comments in the chat saying thank you, thank you. There are also a few questions. So people are learning a lot, quite an interesting and engaging style. Emmanuel Akoto says, great, thank you, Mr. Nketsiah. Nicholas Outa says, this is so insightful. I'm happy I logged in. Zadok Mainge says, learning moment, thanks. Sylvester Ndori says, quite informative. Emmanuel Akoto, a lot of other people still saying thank you so much. So I'll go straight to the questions just because of time. And hopefully if we go over the hour, you can still spare a few more minutes. I see quite a number of concerns about different scenarios, what if, and so I'm just scrolling the chat to where the questions are. So we had a question from Emmanuel Arhin who says, can't we have a clash of ideas? So maybe he can expound more on that. Emmanuel, would you like to unmute? And just give us a little context.
Right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Ahin. Yeah, I want to find out, it's not possible for us to have a clash of ideas. I may have an idea that somebody has written already, but I've not read that idea, sentence or whatever. But I wrote my work and it happened to clash with someone's idea. It's not possible. If it happens that way, what do we do? How do you term it? Thank you.
Right. So do you want to take one question at a time? Isaac, or do you want to take a couple?
Yeah, so, oh yeah, we can. I think, Joyce, I thought you were going to answer this because this one, that's why it's in your domain. Okay, yeah, so I think we can encourage those who are also not on the journal platform to join. And we can also discuss that there if there is a need to even have, I think, Joyce, you can talk about this better because we have this mentorship sessions that you do one-on-one with people. So I'll leave that question to you too.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I feel on the spot now. So Emmanuel, if I get your question right, is that in literature and in research, there are what we call convergences and divergences of viewpoints, ideas, and schools of thought. And so if your idea is clashing with that which you have read, I think that is what the facilitator spoke about, adding your critique. Your critique is either to agree or to disagree. So in literature or in research writing, we do organize ideas. And actually, that's why you will find that even in a piece of writing, at the end of a sentence, if you read a well-written journal article, you might find 2 or 3 others at the end of a sentence who are actually in one school of thought, and then you can use a qualifier like however to introduce another group of scholars who have a divergent viewpoint. So the whole idea of synthesizing literature is to actually show the alliances and dalliances, or the agreements and the disagreements. So having a clash of ideas is not a bad thing, but I guess the topic today on plagiarism is about how you attribute, how you can actually show gratitude and acknowledgement to the people whose ideas that you are actually, talking about. Is that clear? Are you well answered?
Sorry, I think I can expatiate it. Now, what I mean
Yeah.
is that I may not have any idea of that person's idea, but it happened that they clashed.
Ah,
Okay, so I may write something under a topic which has also been written by someone else, but I don't know that person. I've not read it, but it happened to be the same. So I test it, and I'm told that I have plagiarized.
oh, got it. So it's the
Oh.
idea. It's
Okay.
I get it. It's like in
Yeah.
contemporary knowledge of this century or of this time, several people can come up with the same idea at the same time. Totally got it. So Isaac, do you want to weigh in on that, or we can
Yeah,
come back quickly?
Sure. So that's why in the research we define scope for ourselves. So you can't review all literature. You review literature based on the scope that you have and your objective that you have set for yourself. And you should make sure that you read enough to create a gap. Okay. Yes, because if you read enough to create a gap, you see that this one already exists.
Right.
Because
Yeah, and if
yes.
somebody just published a paper tomorrow, yet you had no idea, you wrote this paper today and submitted, and somebody just released another piece, I think that's what Emmanuel is alluding to. I think it's
exactly.
There are certain things that you don't have control over.
Right.
Yes, you don't know that what you are. That's why I said great minds think alike. So
right.
You may have a critical brainwave for an article. Someone else may have also thought about it. Yes. But the first to publish becomes the authority.
Got that. And also that research is iterative. You can go back and add, because over time you will always get, different people. But if you had your original idea and it was yours, well, I don't think you need to cite it. But if you come across, that in future, you can always modify your paper if you haven't submitted, if it's still a manuscript. So thank you. That's, I think, now well answered. And then we have Dorothy Obengo. What do you do if your supervisor insists your original thought must be cited and you don't have the citation? That's very similar to Emmanuel's question, except that, it's your original thought, and actually your supervisor thinks, no, you need a citation right there. But it's true, you did not read anyway. It came from your mind.
Sure.
So maybe you can respond to that.
Yeah, sure. So for that, it doesn't mean that, that's why I indicated that. It doesn't mean that in academia, every sentence that you write, you have to cite. No. Then what new things are you also bringing in the body of knowledge? Okay, so you read other people's work, you create a gap. The gap that we are creating means that what others have done that you think they have not covered, that you think you can cover. The problem that you see in other people's work that you think because they define the scope for themselves, they couldn't extend to that boundary of what you think you want to extend to that boundary. So sometimes it depends on how you do it. So when it doesn't necessarily mean that your supervisor has to insist that whatever you write, even if it is your own essential thoughts, you have to cite. No, it doesn't happen like that in academia.
Okay, got that. And Zadok Mange asks, what about if a supervisor plagiarizes the student's work and publishes alone without consent of the student? What's the penalty?
Yeah, so that is very, very unethical in research. So in contemporary research, even if a supervisor supervises a student's work, the student has an IP rights, an intellectual property rights over his work. It is not the supervisor. So if there's an article that's supposed to be published, is the student's name which is supposed to even come first. And if the supervisor wants to use the data because the student is ignorant about this publishing process, okay, it cannot go beyond the student too. So it's punishable. You can even take what we call court action against the supervisor, because that is unethical, and it amounts to even theft, because the work that you have done, you have an IP right over. So anyone who wants to use it must seek permission from you before. So your supervisor doesn't have the right to publish work that you have done without your consent. No.
Yeah, I think that question really points to the power dynamics in our universities, especially with abuse of power and corruption and things like that. So that's a very, very valid question. Thanks for that. Benjamin Akinmoyeje asks, what is the best source to cite an emerging issue like COVID-19 or mobile technology statistics?
So what I would say about that is that in the research ecosystem, we have credible outlets and non-credible outlets, the ones that mostly we call predatory journals. So I would suggest that, as a suggestion, I recommend that whenever you want to cite sources, especially with these emerging issues, we cite sources that are credible. And how do we get these credible sources? From a credible database like the Web of Science or the Elsevier Scopus database. If these research sources from these journals, these are credible journals the whole world over. Okay, so that's what I would say. So there's a database, Scopus database. When you go to the internet and just go to Scopus, yes, you can. There's an Excel sheet there that you can download that it's gives a wide range of credible journals that we can cite sources from.
Benjamin, are you well answered? Just checking the chat, or you can unmute and say if you're well answered. Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm just checking to see.
Wangari, can I just
welcome.
mention something?
Yes.
I wanted to say I'm on the road, but I need to quickly. So, you know, if you want to cite numbers like number of mobile phone users as at 2021, there's no journal, there's no academia person who has written about it. So I got a review recently, and the person keeps screaming, cite an academic source. Academic source for social media user in 2021. Where am I going to find that? The only sources is probably find data from Facebook and Twitter and those places. And this person assumes, this reviewer assumes that those are not academic sources. And that's what I mean when you have emerging technologies that people are yet to even be able to establish research on them, and you want to cite them in your own academic work. What are the best sources that you could use to say, see, this is valid? And sometimes some of these sources are paid, like statistics. It's difficult to get onto their real-time data. So that's just what I wanted to find out from the prof. Well, I mean,
yeah, sure. So I get your concern. So every discipline has its rules. Okay, so in this academy, in academia, we deal with credible published sources. Credible published sources. I'm very particular with the words and phrase that I'm using. So you can just use anything at all, like something on Facebook, something on Twitter, some of that. Those are just people's opinions, but it has not gone under the peer-reviewed review process. Okay, in academia, we want to be authoritative in our writings. Okay, and you can only be authoritative in your writing when you cite credible published sources. I don't know whether you get it.
I agree with what I'm not arguing. What I mean by Facebook users, Facebook has a database of how many people are on their platform. That's what I meant. Twitter has the number of people on their platform. I don't mean the comments of people or tweets of people. I just mean the industry data that they have, because they do annual reports. They release their own data for the purposes of transparency and documentation and business. That's what I meant.
Sure. Yeah. So where you get it, where you had that particular data from, yeah, you cite it. Even if it's a link to that particular data, you can. I think it's enough.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
one thing that we should also know is that that this is in this emerging contemporary research, this issue of there is no, what do you call it, paper on, okay, those sentences that we write to create a gap that no one has ever researched into are becoming outmoded. Probably we have to know that probably we have not read up to, or we have not seen any paper. Okay, that's why sometimes we say there's a debt in knowledge. Okay, meaning we think there's scarcity of it. But if we say no one has ever, then it means we have read all the papers in our discipline, we have not seen it. Of which it's not possible. I think that's why sometimes some supervisors will keep on telling you, when you make those statements, they tell you, no, provide the source, provide the source. I think that's fine. Sometimes maybe some of these issues come out.
Yeah, I agree. We have some disciplines with very recent information changing by the minute, by the hour. And the idea here is to cite every source, to actually say where you got the information. That adds credibility, you know. So thank you for that. Effa Douglas asks, what about paraphrasing and acknowledging the source? And Nicholas Outa answered Douglas. Nicholas says, kindly find time and watch sci.ai on YouTube. It will help answer this perfectly. Thank you, Nicholas, for answering that. So, you know, nowadays we have a lot of information on YouTube over the net. You can actually self-teach on how to do paraphrasing. Today's webinar may not be able to, you know, unpack that in a lot of detail, but you got an idea today about paraphrasing. So I hope, Effa, you're well answered. Hasina says, after I have read many sources and I have gained much ideas, it starts feeling as if now I have my own views. How do I cite? Because by now I am starting to write as if it is my own thoughts. I really like Hasina's question because in my own research, I ended up qualifying the statements that were mine, you know, by saying the investigator, the researcher, you know, the PI and things like that. So this idea that how do you cite your own thoughts? And I would say you can use qualifying phrases. I don't know if, Isaac, you have anything to add about how one can cite your own views. I think you alluded to it earlier in the presentation.
I didn't get. I didn't get it. Well, I didn't get the question well.
Okay, so maybe I can repeat the question. Sorry, I read it and I answered it. I should have let.
Yeah, sure. I heard you using your personal experiences to also. Yeah.
Right. So let me read it again. Sorry, I lost it. Or Dorothy, can you unmute and just say it briefly in your own words? I know we are past time. Dorothy, can you hear me? Okay, let me just get it.
Dorothy is online. It's not online. Is she there? Dorothy, please, are you there? Okay. Joyce, I think you can.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's fine. Yeah, I'll find it in a minute. Yes, after, oh, it's Hasina, sorry, it was us. I have read many sources and I have gained much ideas. It starts feeling as if I now have my own views. How do I cite? Because by now I am starting to write as if it is my own thoughts.
So we mostly stand on the shoulders of giants. Okay, yes, you may have the ideas, but at least you have to also see what people have also done before you can create a gap. You don't create a gap from our own ideas just in isolation. No. We build on knowledge. We build on knowledge, already existing knowledge. Okay. Yes, we don't create new knowledge from out of blue. It's what others have done that we think that okay, we can do ABC to widen the scope of what is already existing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm beginning to feel like a possible future seminar would be maybe on synthesis, because the questions that are being asked are quite more basic about how to write, how to compile ideas, how to do a literature synthesis, more than even plagiarism. So that was well answered. Thank you. So Dorothy repeated her question. What do you do if the supervisor insists it is not your thought and it must be cited? Kindly explain again. And Hasina answered Dorothy. Hasina said, Dorothy, you can perhaps give your own views and then support your views by citing others. I could be answering my own. So I like, the interaction in the chat about, sometimes supervisors saying that every sentence must be cited. And I think you alluded to oversighting. So if the supervisor insists we must see a citation, yet you think it's your own thoughts, original thought, what do you do?
Yes. So I think you have already answered this, that yeah, over citation weakens academic writing, because then where lies your observation? Okay, right. And where lies your own critique of what you have read? Okay, so you also have to, we build on knowledge. So what is already existing, you also bring yours. So that others will come also use yours and build on yours. Others will come and build on like that, and generation keeps on going. Yeah, so always there's a need to, but we shouldn't be like every sentence, yes, everything means how are you also contributing to knowledge creation?
Right.
Okay,
yes. Yeah, and I found that especially for more technical writing like the thesis or dissertation, some universities will require you to actually attribute who said this. So that is where now the tip about, you can say the researcher, the investigator, or the research team or things like that to qualify the statement in that person. So that's just really about the nuts and bolts of how to write it. Good. Then Nicholas Outa says the other place for latest literature is dimensions.ai. These are wonderful resources. Thank you so much, Nicholas, for sharing that. Mary says get data from the Communications Authority. There's always a relevant body or agency for real-time data. Benjamin says thank you. He's well answered. A lot of people saying thank you. So this has been great. We can never exhaust the topic of plagiarism. Mwangi says, good stuff. We've had a wonderful session, highly interactive, and people are asking for more. I think we want to see more of this, and we've been really, really honored. Benjamin, is your hand still up or?
Hello. Benjamin, are you there? Okay, I think the hand is down now. Hello, Joyce. Oh, sorry. I think we lost Joyce. The line. And Joyce is having small difficulties with network. The network is. Okay, you're welcome back, Joyce.
I
You're muted.
apologize. Yes, I apologize. I was saying thank you so much for this wonderful webinar, and I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the founder of AIDA Africa Journal Club, that is Aurelia Monene, as well as the admin team. We have David, who's the lead of knowledge management, and Raymond, who's our programs coordinator. So my name is Dr. Joyce Wangare. I am the lead mentor at Journal Club. If you're not yet a member, please join us. Helen, the webinar materials will be shared. Thank you for your comment. You say, thank you so much, Joyce, for organizing this webinar. So I appreciate you and have a nice evening. I'd like to give it back to Isaac to give us closing comments as we finish.
All right, so I'd like to thank all participants for making it to this webinar. As Joyce has already indicated, there's a journal club that you all learn from each other and learn from more experts. From the beginning of my presentation, I said I want to share the letter I've also learned. So the letter I've learned is what I've also shared. We will all contribute to this as a way of helping us to become more ethical researchers. I appreciate your time. My email address is there. Feel free to contact me anytime, anywhere. Yes, to also offer the letter you can offer. And do more collaborations as and when it is necessary to build a united Africa full of ethical researchers and necessary. So thank AIDA Africa for the opportunity. Thank you all for your attention.
All right, thank you so much. So you can leave at your own pleasure. If you like, you can unmute and say goodbye as you leave. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Bye.